and really looking at the deeper meaning of coming into sacred union with our beloved and how it is beyond the surface level ideas that many of us have taken on through conditioning, through what's out there, through the modeling of the world, and shifting your paradigm around the way that you may have been looking at long-term partnership, long-term relationship, and specifically marriage. Whether if you're single or if you already are in a relationship with your beloved, you may find that this conversation is going to be useful and valuable. This conversation was inspired by another conversation I was having over on my Facebook page. And so if you're not connected with me, head on over there and connect with me there, where we were having a conversation about money and marriage. And this particular individual is single, and she approached this conversation from this perspective of, oh, I'm so glad I've done all of this inner work because when I get married, I won't have any of those problems. That is one of the biggest misconceptions that accomplished spiritual and feminine women have when it comes to marriage, when it comes to long-term relationship, when it comes to partnership is you have done a lot of inner work. You have done a lot of personal growth work. You have done a lot of healing work. And I had that misconception too. I thought that because of all of the trauma work and the inner growth work and the personal growth work I had been on before I met my husband, that qualified me to finally be this perfect wife and to not have any challenges in my marriage, and that we would just set off into the sunset and be smooth sailing. And that couldn't have been anything further from the truth. In fact, I believe one of the greatest self-actualization containers we can find ourselves in as accomplished spiritual and feminine women is me, marriage, and entrepreneurship. So today we'll talk about marriage. And as I was having this conversation with this individual, I decided that it would be valuable to actually do a video, not just talking about it in written form, but to come have an actual conversation about this concept of the mirror of marriage so that you can dissolve any misbeliefs, any myths that you may have had about this concept of perfectionism seeping into your sacred union that could really make room for an ego clash. And it's something that I have experienced. It's something the women that I have worked with have experienced, where what does it look like to now continue on your self-actualization path, to continue on your personal growth and development path as a spiritual feminine woman, and to not look at the growth that you did prior to your relationship to mean that you no longer have to do any type of inner growth work. In fact, we are always learning, growing, evolving, I believe, during our time on this planet. And so this concept of mirroring is an idea that our reactions to others are a mirror for us to look at the parts that are being represented in another. Where does that exist within me? Where does the behavior in my partner shine a light on what is happening within me? And it's interesting, as I looked up the definition of mirror, what I found was that one of the definitions is this polished image. And I believe that's one of the beautiful parts about long-term relationships, specifically marriage, is that there's this polishing that happens. Hey there, thank you for being here. There's this polishing that happens where my partner sees my blind spots and I see my partner's blind spots, or my partner may have a strength that's my weakness and vice versa. And we're to come together to create this beautiful harmony with each other. However, if you are operating in your ego and you're operating in this state of pointing the finger and not looking at the three that are pointing back at you, you may miss an opportunity for that beautiful sacred polishing that gets to happen for you and for them and for you collectively as a couple. And so when we're looking at this, it's really this idea that our relationship is this reflection of some part that is inside of us. And so Carl Jung has this philosophy of inside of psychology kind of shadow work. You may have heard of it before, where, well, now let's block this person because we just don't do that. Let's see here. There we go. One moment, please. There we go. All right. So, when we're looking at Carl Jung's psychological concept of shadow, his concept was about this uncomfortable, repressed aspects of ourselves and others that are lying dormant within ourselves and our psyche and our unconscious. And oftentimes it's in these different interactions with individuals that can cause these different parts of ourselves to surface. Now, many are unaware of these parts that exist within themselves. This is one of the parts of the work that I do in one of my trauma-informed feminine embodiment programs, where I look at we have this deep dive conversation about the different parts of ourselves throughout our lived experiences that were developed, and where does this show up that can create self-sabotage either inside of our marriages and relationships or inside of our leadership as feminine leaders. Now, when we're looking at the concept of marriage, there's these moments where you could be having an interaction with your beloved where a trigger happens, right? And this triggers a shadow part of yourself that has not been fully back integrated into wholeness within you. And the reaction that could come out could be anger, could be frustration, could be aggression, could be a harsh tongue, could be shutting down, could be avoiding conflict. And we have to look at that because that is what starts to create disconnect inside of your sacred union. In fact, I talked about this over on my Facebook account a couple of days ago, where I said anywhere where you are disconnected within yourself and then you are experiencing a disconnect with your beloved, meaning there isn't that deep, close intimacy, closeness, connection, togetherness that you really deeply crave on a soul level as a spiritual feminine being woman. That's what we crave, is intimacy, closeness, connection. When you're not experiencing that, sometimes what the default pattern is to blame and to look at what they're doing or what they're not doing. But what I always invite the women that I work with to do is to look at what part in you are you disconnected with, and how is your partner mirroring that back to you? Because our beloveds are mirrors. It's an opportunity for us to look within and to decide, oh, this is where I feel a disconnect within myself. I've been suppressing this part of myself, or I have been not connected to my feminine. I've been working a lot. I've been really hustling. I've been really chasing inside of the work that I do to this next level. I've been really putting in a lot of work, and I find myself a little disconnected from my feminine essence. Well, your beloved may be mirroring that back to you. But if you are not in harmony with yourself, and you are not wanting to face these shadow parts, these uncomfortable parts within that are asking for your attention, and instead you're blaming your beloved, you're blaming your partner for the disconnect, for the fraction, for the friction that could be happening in your relationship, that only furthers the disconnection. That only exacerbates the friction, the fracture that you may be experiencing. And what I implore you to do instead is to look within and ask yourself, what is my beloved mirroring back to me? It's interesting because I'm looking at a piece over here on my wall. And this piece is called The Infinity Landscape. Tomorrow will be a decade since me and my husband have been together. A decade, 8-8. And this infinity landscape, what I love about it is the meaning that infinity symbolizes, number 8 symbolizes the infinity. And this image is the river going down the middle, and then there are 2 rows of trees, and you see this riverbed going, but then the water is reflecting the trees and it's mirroring the trees. And we have it right here to kind of remind us, me and my husband, to ourselves, we are each other's mirror. We are each other's mirror. And so before we go into blaming or shaming or criticizing the other, we always have to go back within and ask, what part did I play in this co-creation? What part did I play in this interaction? What part did I play in this fracture, in this friction that's happening between us? Where am I disconnected with myself? And how can I do the integration work within myself first so that when I reunite with my beloved, we can reunite with harmony? And I'll talk more about the harmony part here in a moment. Now, the part about Jung's psychological concept of shadow is that these are these parts that are not fully integrated within ourselves. And sometimes we haven't fully accepted, acknowledged, or integrated these parts within ourselves. And so there could be some shame there. And a lot of times when you're dealing with toxic shame specifically, it's a result of a trauma. It's a result of a past lived experience that has not been fully experienced. And I believe triggers are an opportunity for us to re-experience the experiences that were not fully experienced, meaning you have an opportunity to actually go be with those parts of yourself that did not receive what it needed in the moment, because maybe you got caught in survival mode, or maybe you suppressed and numbed the emotional aspects of that experience, or maybe you felt you didn't have time to be with yourself in those experiences. And so when your beloved says something or they do something and it triggers this aspect of a past experience, maybe you were in a relationship before many years ago with somebody who was quite narcissistic. That was my story. I was with someone who was quite narcissistic, and there was a lot of traumatic experiences that happened that went unresolved within me because I also had a child with this person. And so I was unable to fully process those experiences in the moment because I was so busy trying to take care of my son, who was a baby at the time, and finish my education and provide for us because I wasn't receiving financial support from his father at the time. There were a lot of different experiences that I had that never got fully processed. And because I had done so much inner work, I had done all the therapy and the retreats and the coaching and the hiring, the mentors and the advisors and taking the programs and the courses, that by the time I had met my husband, I felt I had resolved everything. I did not know what I didn't know. I was unaware of what I was unaware of, meaning I was unaware that there were still parts of those past lived experiences that were lying dormant within me, and that they were not ever going to surface until I was actually in a relationship where my heart was open. A lot of times what tends to happen with accomplished spiritual feminine women is they don't understand why these aspects of ourselves show up inside of the relationship, because you've done a lot of inner work, you've done a lot of inner growth work, and you're like, well, I thought I dealt with this, I thought I faced this, I thought I resolved this. But oftentimes what is happening is the relationship that you're now in, you feel a level of safety in there. And usually I believe that is why these shadow aspects of ourselves start to surface, because there's this level of safety where there's this part of you that feels safe to be seen. But when the ego gets in the way and you have this deep need to be right, and you're really operating from this place of self-righteousness, and you really don't want to take full responsibility for the part that you've played in the co-creation of the experience you're having with your beloved, you'll find yourself blaming and shaming and criticizing them rather than looking at the reflection in the mirror. And so this image I'm looking at, this piece that's on our wall here, it reminds me to always remember to look at my part in the co-creation of our experiences. Now, oftentimes when this past baggage, if you will, is surfacing inside of our relationships, and we're wondering, I thought I dealt with this. I thought I resolved this. I thought I already healed this. Why is this showing up now? Well, I believe it's an opportunity to fully actually alchemize all of the patterns, the perceptions, and the paradigms that were associated with that lived experience. A lot of people, especially accomplished spiritual feminine women, will use talk therapy as a modality and as an approach for healing these different traumas, but you can't talk your way through the depth of repair and healing and self-actualization that I'm referring to. Now, while it's good to be heard, it's good to be validated in your experiences, talking is not enough. And I'll do another conversation another day about this concept of trying to talk your way through healing, because a lot of accomplished spiritual and modern day high achieving women are trying to use just this talk modality, and they're still not connected to the felt sense emotion inside of their body. In fact, many are still living from the neck up. They're not connected to their body. And so when you're having an experience with your beloved and it's triggering something inside of you, but you're not even aware that there's a felt sense sensation happening in your body, your ego will automatically go into blame, shame, and criticism. This is a form of self-sabotage. This is self-sabotaging the intimacy, the closeness, the connection, the togetherness that you really crave in your heart and in your soul. But in order to get to that depth, you're going to have to stop living in here and reconnect with your vessel and your body. And that could be what the disconnect, the friction, the fracture, even you're experiencing what your beloved is mirroring back to you. That could be the reflection that's being mirrored back is, hello, what are you feeling in this moment? How are you experiencing this experience? And if you find you're having a difficult time with naming it or being with it without suppressing it, without numbing it, without avoiding it, without trying to escape it, that right there is your opportunity for growth. That is your opportunity for evolving. That is your opportunity for transformation. How do you become a better lover? How do you become a better partner? How do you become a better wife? So that you are participating in the co-creation of the deeper intimacy, connection, closeness, and togetherness that you deeply crave on a heart and soul level. This is where you take responsibility for your part in co-creating that experience by not receiving the reflection in the mirror and taking it personally as a personal attack. And when we do that, that means there is a level of self-worth attached. And we have to look at that. We have to look at that. So as spiritual, sensitive, feminine women, I believe that we must have a sovereign, secure, healthy, masculine partner in our lives, especially those of us who have a mission, a calling, those of us who are leading. Whether if you're leading in an organization, whether if you're leading in corporate, whether if you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, a visionary, it is imperative that we have that structure inside of our lives and our relationship that creates this level of safety. What do I mean by that? That means that you know that you're held and you're supported and you're cared for and you're loved and you have someone in your life that fully has your back. And I believe as spiritually sensitive, gifted, accomplished feminine women, we actually thrive and we actually fulfill our mission more and better when we have that support from a healthy, masculine, secure, sovereign partner. Because when you're with this type of partner and then you come in with your spiritual, sensitive, feminine self and you come together, this is how we experience sacred union. This is how we experience harmony between the feminine and the masculine. Now, the conversations I'm completely unavailable for are the conversations that are talking in this disempowering way about men. Just how women don't want to be generalized, just as me as a woman of color, a Black biracial woman, I don't want to be generalized. There are really amazing men out there, my husband being one of them and our adult boys being others, who don't want to be generalized either. Safe men, secure men, men who are confident and secure in their masculinity, men who take on this role of being a provider and a protector seriously, men who are not out here to prey or be predators or harm women, to manipulate women. There are men out there who have our best interest in mind. And so there's a part of, as sacred, feminine, spiritual women, our responsibility is to unlearn some of the conditioning we have received through the feminist movement about men and about the masculine, so that we actually can come into sacred harmony and be in a sacred union with our beloveds and co-create everything we've ever wanted in this lifetime. That's why the sacred text in the Bible says two is better than one, because if one falls down, the other is there to help them up. That is the point of this. Marriage goes beyond fulfilling sexual fantasies or needing someone there to emotionally validate you because you didn't receive that growing up. There is a bigger mission for marriage. And when we can understand that, we can stop taking the reflections in the mirror from our beloveds personally, and we can take responsibility for our own inner work and decide to level up as wives, which also supports us to level up inside of our leadership and the work that we do and create more impact and abundance, which is what we're all here for. And so if you are looking to be supported in being more deeply embodied in your feminine essence, so that you're experiencing more fulfilling relationships, creating greater impact as a feminine leader and more abundance, then reach out so we can share ways that I can support you in that. If you know someone who needs to hear this or who would find value in what I share, please share this. I would really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to speaking with you next time. Have a fabulous day. Take care now.